Hello there, and welcome to a video game discussion. I'm Fred. If you are new to the channel, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. This week, I say this week, or this time around, we're talking about Grandia 2, which I recently finished my most recent playthrough of this in the wee hours of September 4th here in 2024. Um, so by the time this video is up on the or live on the YouTube side, it would have been about a week and a half since we wrapped up this playthrough. My most recent playthrough was also done using the HD collection that's available for Xbox consoles. But I will say this: the first time I've ever played Grandia 2 was the PlayStation 2 version. And yes, this one is complete in case with the original manual and disc. So there you go. Um, there are a number of things I want to talk about as it relates to Grandia 2. And I kind of feel like it's underappreciated to a very large degree. And what has me thinking it's underappreciated is the percentage of achievement unlocks that I've seen on the Xbox side in terms of what is the most common achievement people have versus the most uncommon. And and Grandia 2, the percentage of people who've actually finished the game at least once on a normal difficulty is actually surprisingly low. Less than 10% of people on Xbox consoles have actually finished Grandia 2. And the same can be said about the original, the Grandia itself as part of the HD collection. And I kind of wonder if the fact that people do not appreciate that, yes, this is a game that was I believe, originally released on the Sega Dreamcast in the late 1990s, and then later ported to the PlayStation 2, and then later ported to that also sold like a PC port, and as well as that same time, and then was locked behind that PlayStation 2 esque wall for many years. Grandia 2 was available on Steam long before the original game itself was. And then it has seen part of the HD collections that's available on Switch, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One in more recent years. So I kind of wonder if is there like people who do not appreciate this game because it is in a much older title. Um, and I have to also say it's like if that is the case, I really think people are missing out because it does a vast improvement on so many things as relates to the original game. The combat system is a lot more robust and it's more chaotic, where you can't, at least early on, you can't overpower uh, the game and lock down enemies as easily as you could in the original game. So there is a little bit more. You have to pay attention a lot more, especially since times at your party can end up attacking different enemies as opposed to focusing on the same enemy on consecutive turns. Which also comes, which also makes a huge difference in the fact that the every single boss battle is multi-phase, and where you're basically taking the bosses down piece by piece. You have it's like total destruction of of the bosses that you face over the course of what is essentially a 42-ish hour long adventure. So the combat system is better. The mana egg situation is very much different, as well as leveling up. Instead of leveling up individual weapons, individual magic skills, you earn skill coins and magic coins that you apply to the mana eggs characters and skill books that you find along the way that help improve your party and the use of the magic spells that you end up having available to you. And you get enough is like you can finish the game with like the first four skill books that you find as well as the first four mana eggs that you find, but there are eight of each. This particular playthrough, I finished it with seven and everything maxed out. I had more skill coins and magic coins left available at the end of the game than was absolutely necessary. And my levels that I finished at was about 59 in terms of the character levels. So there's a lot there where you don't have to fully grind out as much as you will need to, in comparison to the original game. Although grinding is very, very much encouraged to ensure that you have everything available to you, and especially if you are an achievement hunter, because otherwise grinding is absolutely necessary. Because one of the worst achievements I ever seen in any video game, the having 250,000 pieces of gold on you at one time, that is an actual achievement. One could view that as, oh, that means that means not buying an item and selling everything that you have at every available opportunity. Now, it is possible to grind to get all that gold uh, uh, by the halfway point in the game, as well as hit level 50 before even the halfway point of the game. So again, it's totally possible. I did it. I would dare say that was about a 10. No, that was about. I would say that was about half my playthrough, just grinding for gold and maxing stuff out. I want to say about 15 to 20 hours, basically necessary in that regard. Again, totally possible. And there is a great little spot where you can do that, even if it might take a while. But this is where, again, another fact where this game is underappreciated is that you can set the AI where the battles can happen automatically. So if you find, again, one of the best grind spots here was after you reach the St. Helm Popple state. If you return to the previous area, that's like that's like halfway up the mountain. I forget the exact name of it. That last, essentially, you return to the last area there before you reach the equivalent of Vatican City within this game. And there's a nice little loop you can run there. And if you set the powers and let the characters just do their thing, you can just go from the hit three groups of enemies, exit it, return it, so the enemies respawn, and keep running that loot over and over again. Heck, I was doing that off stream for several days, and it was just while I was working. So I was literally working here and just literally navigating from one battle to the other. From one battle to the next is what I was essentially doing. Leaving the area, returning every so often, returning to the inn at the Saint at the Popple State to save, recover, and then go right back to it. And yeah, it takes a while, especially when you start when you're only getting like 50 XP per, but you get like about that loop will essentially give you about 1,000, roughly 1,000 skill coins and 1,000, or slightly a little less in terms of magic coins, and so you can grind out everything. You could unlock your party's initial everyone's skills, max them all out, max out any mana eggs you have at that point, any skill books you have at that point, and essentially make you an unstoppable monster for for basically the back end of that game. So it's again, it's pretty damn awesome and exploitive here. Uh, in terms of characters coming in and out of the party, Ryodo, Elena are essentially your main party members throughout the entire thing, and Elena sometimes swaps out for Millennia, her alter ego, in terms of like the plot when she becomes possessed by the Wings of Almar. But you don't have to worry about characters falling behind, because another character that's in the game, Rowan, uh, is part of your party for a while, then leaves and then comes back later. But you don't have to worry about having essentially catching characters up in terms of their level. Everyone scales to the level that you're at. So it is totally possible. Again, and I'm going to refer to Tio here. Like when by the time Rowan leaves the party and Tio joins, Tio would be at the same level of everyone else. You just have to focus on unlocking all of her initial abilities and maxing them out to have her on equal par in terms of what, again, combat options that she has available. Again, something that is very, very much it's an underappreciated tactic, because other RPGs will either have characters either over uh, being several levels higher, such as the original Grandia, which would have Milda and Gadwin being like several levels higher than Justin and Fina, and then or later in the game where or so for a good example here, Rap, Guido, and Liete being underleveled to a large degree in comparison to Justin and Fina's. And so where you're either trying to equal out everyone or get characters called up, so there's that. It's less stressful in Grandia 2 where you just make where everyone's on the same playing field. So again, I feel it's something that's underappreciated in that regards. We could talk about the music. Music, I don't feel is the soundtrack for Grandia 2 is not as is I would say not as good as the original game. Mainly because you don't really get like a good variance there in terms of like of themes and such. Your initial combat themes that you hear at the beginning of the game for when you engage combat has the initiative, get ambushed, and your boss battle encounters essentially are the same all the way straight through. Uh, However, on voice acting, one would dare say the voice actors involved in this game is certainly a step up. Uh, for example, Elena is voiced by Jennifer Hale. Jennifer Hale's, again, the true voice of Commander Shepard from the Mass Effect games. Although you wouldn't know it. If you did not know Elena was voiced by Jennifer Hale, you would not make that connection there, because I certainly didn't. It's like, and I played this game originally on the PlayStation 2. And I only just recently noticed that when I was looking at the credits at the end of my most recent playthrough of this game. Ryoto is voiced by Cam Clark. Cam Clark is best known as the original voice of Leonardo on 1987 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle series. So, hence why there was a running joke during my most recent playthrough of the game, where it says like making reference to that fact. Oh, it's just a Ninja Turtle. No, it's just Leonardo, and it's again. So you have like these familiar voices, and also like Rowan, for example, is also voiced by B.J. Ward, who is probably best known for making many of their characters sound like an 80-year-old grandmother. Again, that was a joke I would have as it relates to Rowan's voice, where he just yeah, he sounds like he's at again like like a grandmother. And it also doesn't help that sometimes the character model looks like a little old person too. But at least in terms of the no, not the character model itself, but some of the portraits in terms of expressions the character has, especially when he becomes King Rowan. But I digress. Um, there again, so it's like you have to appreciate the vocal talents and those involved. Um, let's see. Moving on to what shall we talk about next? Because there's just so much to cover. The story in and of itself, kind of, it takes a while in its own way to get going. Is like the true revelation of everything doesn't really start to kick in. In terms of like how easily corruptible a major religion that promotes its own righteousness over everyone else's. it takes a long while for it to get going, and there's no even there's not outside like the overall big bad of Valmar, who doesn't say anything throughout the course of the game. Is like Valmar is a silent antagonist for the most part, but a lot of it's more of like, oh, the darkness in man's souls, and it's like saving souls. It's basically a big allegory in terms of like how much overreach that the Catholic Church actually ends up having. Matter of fact, there is so much symbolism in terms of that regard. It's not even funny when you're essentially going up against the proverbial Pope. But of course, as we do know in a lot of RPGs that especially came out of Japan, especially over the course of the back in essentially over the course of the like 80s into the 90s and into the early 2000s and such. Yeah, there is. You definitely get that vibe. It was like, yeah, you're essentially going up against the more the Catholicism version of 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 a god and a religious esque institutions and such. So it's kind of like, yeah, okay, something that you can appreciate if you're like me and someone being someone who got literally thrown out of Catholic school. So so again, I can appreciate. I can greatly appreciate a lot of the themes in that regard, especially with this particular game. There is, um, there's also, however, that said, because it takes so long for the story to unfold, that you that when it does become very much apparent of who is the true villain that you are essentially going to be facing, it you can't really appreciate a lot of the details of it. As a matter of fact, there is such a large portion of this game where you kind of feel like some characters get underdeveloped and such because of that. Like you only get millennia, essentially, in key moments, like for like the rescue Rowan, millennia replaces Lena for that bit. Um, you and also when facing the tongue and the eyes of Valmar, like Millennia does not really get a lot of character development, um, because she's very few and far between. You don't really get any like outside of major story points, actual conversations with her, unless you're going around and talking to NPCs when she is in the party. Same to an extent can be applied to all the characters in general, unless you're doing like the stopping at the end and doing the dinner scenes there, that you would not appreciate like the struggles that Tio has in terms as an android, who is discovering that, oh yeah, they are not just an automata, which is the term used in this game, but that they have a soul, that they have a heart, that they have feelings, and they can grow attachment to characters. Like if you don't do the dinner scenes and when you're able to stop off at an inn, you will not you would miss out on that to a large degree. And granted, there's not many in sequences that you can do that with. So you have to have those particular conversations with it to get the character development. And I said this in particular when towards the later stages of again my playthrough here this year, where Ryoto apologizes to Tio for treating her like a doll. And it's like, wait, when the hell did that happen? Because so much of it happens off screen. So you have to be talking to every single NPC, getting the character interactions that way to notice like any changes and stuff. Because some even if to see where some of these characters are getting their personalities from in terms of their character growth. So 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 again, you can appreciate that, but at the same time, you don't get all the like the major character moments at the same time. Um, Essentially, another word that shines a bit in its own way is, well, and this can be considered to be how this game is underappreciated, is that Ryoto falls in love with Elena, love at first sight. He falls in love with her at the beginning of the game when he hears her singing. Uh, before he even gets the assignment to be her bodyguard to escort her to to the initial sealing that she was supposed to take part in. Like, if you don't pick up on that, you don't appreciate like the initial the moment when they kiss. He kisses her when he's looking when he was willing to be embodied with the horns of Valmar, and like to draw on her strength and the fact that he wants to protect her, because again, that's he is essentially her bodyguard, and that is his one duty. It kind of his driving force of his character from the very beginning of the game. But if you don't notice his initial reaction to her upon hearing her sing and then initially seeing her, you can't really appreciate it towards the end, because he's busting her chops 90% of the times in a lot of the dinner scenes and stuff like that, where he might put his foot in his mouth in various conversations, where it is very much obvious, but at the same time it isn't. Um, so there again, so it there is just so much there that can make this game very much appreciated, because underappreciated, because it's not always on display. You don't get a lot of the you get some quiet character moments at times, and other times you don't. And so you really either have to either go out of your way for them, or have to be really paying attention to everything that's being said when those moments happen. Uh, so that brings us down here to, is Grandia 2 still worth playing in 2024? Well, considering that the HD collection that includes both the original game and Grandia 2 came out earlier this year on the Xbox consoles, and I believe also the same applies to Switch and PS4. I'm not entirely sure on those consoles, but yeah, it is. It's like, because number one, Square Enix owns the game, owns the Grandia franchise, and you kind of wonder what else could they do with it, because there are two games left. There are two games left in the Grandia franchise that have never been re-released. Grandia 3, which I own a copy of for PlayStation 2, and Grandia Extreme. So maybe at some point we might see a Grandia HD Collection 2 that includes the two missing main adventure games. I don't know, but at the very least, if you're looking for a solid RPG that, again, I feel that is underappreciated to a large degree, you definitely should take advantage of the fact that the game is available to play here in 2024 on both last gen and current generation consoles. So yeah, it's definitely worth playing. Oh, I almost forgot. There is one thing about the HD collection that I want to address with Grandia 2 in particular, and that is the individual cutscenes. Now, and I just recurred to it here, especially as it relates to cinematics. On the PlayStation 2, you might be able to read that there, where it says featuring, well, maybe not, featuring all new, never before seen cinematics. Anybody who has played any type of game on the PlayStation 2 knows that a lot of the times, a lot of those cinematics were made rather dark, all right? Because again, the PlayStation 2 was a console released on, for like tube televisions, all right? So yeah, you could get them like for big screen televisions and where you can use like RGB, uh, not RGB cables, where you can put it to get like a high definition picture of it. But the PlayStation 2 was kind of like a dark, well, the visuals on it could be considered quite dark in terms of being able to see anything at times, depending on what it was you're playing. Where it can just be very, very tough to see. And because of that, a lot of these cinematics that it's in the HD collection is drawing on the PlayStation 2 files, and yeah, some of the cinematics do not look good. There are times where you can't even see a damn thing. And so I play this on a widescreen television with brightness turned up to about 60 uh, on it, and there's a lot of cinematics where you just I couldn't see any details on it, where you can make out the outlines and the lighting and stuff of certain things, but it's like I do wish that they was just a little bit of a budget done to redo the cinematics for Grandia 2, um, to, to at least make you appreciate of what was there instead of it being a direct port of just using the files from like a 20-year-old version that was just poorly upscaled. Essentially, it's like the cinematics actually look worse. So if I have to bring out a very negative point for Grandia 2 here in 2024, there you go. The cinematics look, by and large, look awful, and it kind of ruins like some key moments. Primarily Merrick's big moment when he sacrifices himself on Valmar's moon, where he essentially does the Conan prayer to Crom. Where you basically expect Merrick in that moment to say, "This is the first time I've ever prayed to you, Granis. Get him out here, and if you don't, it's like you expect him to say, 'The hell with you.'" But yeah, it's like the fact that looking at that particular cinematic, you realize, yeah, they made everything else look good in terms of the main gameplay, in terms of the character models and the backgrounds and the portraits and everything, and then you realize the cinematics did not get any attention at all. So it's a funny thing there. Anyway, that would do it for this particular video. And now next week, right? Next week, we're going to do something else that's Grandia related. Next Friday, I'm going to be taking a look at Grandia Abridged. So you would have that to look forward to in the nearest future. So anyway, and of course on Wednesdays we will be doing the Daria reactions as well. So with that said, tighten your friendship bracelet, stay safe, have a good one, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.